Hey everyone, welcome to the second devlog for Dread Protocol. Before we dive in, I've got some exciting news. The demo that I teased in the last video is now live on Steam. You can download it right now. The demo lets you play up to the first boss, so give it a shot and let me know what you think. The original plan for this devlog was to showcase the new features added for the demo, but instead, I want to focus on the reception and the feedback I've received so far. I'll make sure to go over the new features in the next devlog. Since launching the demo, a number of YouTubers have already covered Dread Protocol. The response has been generally positive. Players are finding the fun and seem to be enjoying the core gameplay. If I had to sum up the feedback in one sentence, it would be fun, but jank. And honestly, that's exactly what I expected.
You cannot hide.
Oh, that's great. Okay, I love the jankiness of this game though.
Launching the demo felt like walking a tightrope between stability and good enough. I knew the game had its rough edges, but getting it into players' hands was the best way to reach a wider audience, both for feedback and for wishlists. As long as people saw the potential and had fun, I considered that a win. And speaking of wins, since launching the demo, I've more than doubled my wishlists, beating what my Steam page had managed to gather over a year and a half in just 3 weeks. On top of that, as more people played and shared their thoughts, I started noticing clear patterns in the feedback, making it much easier to prioritise fixes. So in no particular order, here are some of the biggest improvements I've made since the demo launched. AI jank and corridor clutter. Some players pointed out that the enemy AI could be a bit janky, running through walls or failing to properly path to the player. One of the biggest reasons for this was the sheer amount of clutter in the hallways. If an enemy couldn't find a clear path, the AI would get confused. By reducing the hallway clutter, gunfights already feel much smoother. Another issue was that a lot of the environment geometry wasn't properly marked as an obstacle, meaning AI could and would path straight through it. I've been fixing these as I spot them, and I've caught most of them, but if you see it happening, let me know. General onboarding and adding to the first time user experience. Dread Protocol is a complex game, and players needed better guidance on key mechanics. Things like weapon switching, why you can't pick up enemy weapons, and what those pink triangles on objects mean. To address this, I've added multiple tutorial pop-ups for the most important mechanics, since some players were rushing through the initial tutorial and missing key info. If you skip the weapon tutorial twice, that's on you. The extra pop-ups might feel a bit heavy-handed, but they're getting the job done. In the future, I'll likely add more in-depth tutorials at the home base, covering things like weapons training, grenade usage, and other advanced mechanics. Hit detection not feeling great. This was one of the first things I fixed, because how can you have a shooting game where the hit detection feels off? The issue came down to a few factors. First, bullet velocity was too low. Whilst this was intentional for alien plasma weapons, which are meant to be slow moving, it felt strange for human kinetic weapons. Shots over long distances had subtle but noticeable travel time. To fix this, I increased the velocity of all kinetic weapons by a factor of 10. Secondly, the raycast I was using to detect hits was too thin. My enemies have smaller hitboxes with slight gaps in them to improve the ragdoll physics, but this made some shots feel like they weren't connecting. The fix? I switched from standard raycasts to a sphere cast, making hit detection much more reliable. Gravity hand not always connecting. Some players found the gravity hand to be underwhelming. A big reason for this was that launch objects were not reliably connecting with the enemies. Launched objects would sometimes collide with bullets or enemy weapons, killing their momentum. I've now tweaked it so when an object is released, its physics layer is changed to one that no longer collides with bullets or weapons, making the gravity hand feel a lot more reliable. The launched object will shortly return to its old physics layer so it can be picked up or used as cover. Audio levels. The audio mix was not great. There were quite a few UI sounds that completely deafened the player when compared to the rest of the mix.
Right, yeah, we're not playing anymore. That's too loud. That's blowing me eardrum stuff. Right, so we'll go.
In general, I lowered the overall volume and made the worst defending sounds even quieter. The balance should feel much better now. Shooting whilst crouching. This was a big one. People wanted it, players expected it. I messed up not including it. Originally, Dread Protocol was meant to be a top-down, isometric cover shooter. Because of that, I had disabled shooting whilst crouched early in development. Not adding it back was an oversight. But now, you can crouch and shoot to your heart's content. Quality of life changes. The developer who made Choo Choo Charles recently posted a video on his second channel, Most Common Reasons Steam Users Write Bad Reviews. It's a good video, you should check it out. One of the 2 reasons was not being able to play the game effectively, referring to the settings options that most users expect. Whilst Dread Protocol does have some of the most important ones, for example, being able to rebind keys, change graphic and screen options, adjust sensitivity, I did forget 2 important ones. A toggle for hold the sprint, and options to invert look direction. These options are now available in the controls tab of the settings menu. Sword and melee animations suck. Yep, these animations suck in their current state. Unlike past projects, I've used inverse kinematics to handle weapon switching, recoil, and reloading in Dread Protocol. It's been great for guns, but trying to extend IK to melee attacks was a step too far. Sword swings require full body motion, and my current rig just isn't set up for that.
So we don't have the capacity.
Moving forward, I'll switch to pre-recorded animations for sword attacks and melee strikes. Until that's implemented, I've temporarily removed swords from the game. You'll still have to live with the current melee animations on guns for now. Advice for people making their own games. When I started Dread Protocol, I made the decision early on. I wanted the game to be playable from start to finish as soon as possible. The game has 3 chapters, each culminating in a boss fight, and 5 station types per chapter. From a solo dev standpoint, this structure was a blessing. It allowed me to bounce between different tasks. If I got burned out on one thing, I could shift to another. Some days I focused on enemy design, others on room layouts, and sometimes I just worked on writing events. This approach kept the project creatively fresh and fun. The downside? It took a long time to get the demo out. That's time I could have spent gathering wishlists, building a following, and getting more feedback earlier. In hindsight, I should have exclusively worked on the first chapter, as that's what's included in the demo. The silver lining for Dread Protocol players? A lot of the content for the later stations is already built, which means the full game isn't far from completion. I quickly want to thank all the YouTubers who have covered the demo so far, and thanks to everyone for watching. Go play the demo, and don't forget to wishlist on Steam.